In this lesson, I'm going to configure remote desktop so that I can remotely log into the computers that are all within my domain. And so I'm going to make some changes to the group policy setting. By default, it is not going to work. What I mean by that is if I try to go ahead and open up the remote desktop connection and I try to remotely log into this computer. So I'm going to go ahead and use the IP address. So I'll just type in the cmd ipconfig, hit enter, and I can see the IP address of this computer. And if I try to remotely log into it, type in its IP address and hit connect, I'm going to get an error message saying that it's not going to be allowed to be able to connect. And I'm just getting a list of errors now that just basically show that possibly the remote access to the server has not been enabled, the remote computer is turned off, or the remote computer is not available on the network. And the reasons for this by default are just the fact that the firewall is currently blocking the remote desktop, as well as the remote desktop needs to be turned on the client. And so I'm going to show you where to do this on group policy. We'll start by clicking the Start button, Administrative Tools, Group Policy Management. And we're going to go ahead and there's two different settings that I need to look at. The first one I want to look at is going to be within the firewall. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on my default domain policy. I'm going to choose Edit. This will open this the firewall setting for all the computers on my domain that are Windows computers. So I'm going to go ahead and expand the computer configuration, policies, the administrative templates, the network, and I want to work with network connections. You'll see the Windows firewall, and we're going to work with the domain profile. So I'll click on the domain profile, and I'm going to look for the one that says allow inbound remote desktop exceptions. I'll double click it, and you're going to get a list of the options here of how this works. To begin with, I'm going to need to click enabled. And now I can actually type in this text box that I need. There are three different ways of doing this. I can use the wildcard of the asterisk to allow any computer from any network to remotely log into the computer using remote desktop. It sounds like it's unsecure, however you're going to need to still have the credentials, or the username and the password in order for it to actually allow you to go through. If you're remotely logging in from outside the network, then this is the option you want to have. If we're going to stick within just this network to remotely log into computers, you have the option here for a local subnet, and that just means all the computers within my network itself, within my IP address range. And so this is the local subnet. And then I've also got the option here of typing in specifically which IP addresses will allow me to remotely connect to another computer. And so I'm going to choose the least secure option here and just use the asterisk, just in the event that I need to remotely log in from outside this network to one of these computers. So I'm going to go ahead and put the asterisk on, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And we've made that change to the firewall itself. However, we still have not turned on remote desktop within the computer. So I'm going to need to do that one here as well. And so I'm going to collapse some of these things that kind of work backwards. I'm going to collapse the Windows firewall, collapse the network connections, collapse the network, and we're going to go ahead now and move towards turning it on. And so we're going to expand the Windows components. We're going to look for the remote desktop services, and there it is. We're going to go now to the remote desktop sessions, and we're going to look at connections. And the settings that I want to look at here, I'm going to click on standard so I can see them a little bit better on my view. I'm going to go ahead and look at the allow users to connect remotely using remote desktop services. I'm going to go ahead and enable that and hit apply and OK. And if I want to have multiple people connecting to the computer at the same time, like for the server for instance, I can also set the number of connections at one time. I'll click on that and choose enable, and if I type in the 99999 all the way through, that will give me an unlimited amount of computer people that are able to connect to this particular computer. I'll go ahead and hit OK on that one. So I can limit the number of connections as well, how many people can connect using remote desktop to a computer. And so these two settings I need to have set as well. And so those are set, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of group policy, close those, and now let's go ahead, and I cannot connect yet because the group policy settings have to take effect. So over on my client, I'm going to go ahead and type in GP update and run this group policy update. Once that's set, I'm going to show you where the settings have actually taken effect here on my client, and then I'll show you that we can actually now connect. So if I click on Start, I'm going to go to Computer, I'm going to right click on it and choose Properties, and I'm just going to open up the remote settings here. I'll need to have the administrator privileges, so I'm just going to use my administrator account to view this. And you can see now, by default, I have allow connections from computers running on any service remote desktop. So it actually turned it on for me automatically. Let's also check our firewall, and I'll do that by clicking Start, Control Panel. We're going to go to System and Security, and then under the Windows Firewall, I'm just going to choose Allow a Program through the Windows Firewall. And we're going to look down through here, and we should see Remote Desktop. There it is. Remote Desktop has been enabled through my domain profile. So right now the domain is actually allowing Remote Desktop to come through it. So now the moment of truth. Let's go ahead and connect. I'm going to try to hit the connect button again, and you can see now using Remote Desktop it's giving me the option for a username and password. So I'm going to go ahead and log in through my domain administrator account. I'll type in the password and hit OK. It'll take a moment here. It'll say securing remote connection, and it's going to give me a little warning box to pop up here in just a minute. And it's just basically going to tell me that it cannot verify the computer. Are you sure this is what you want to do? I'm going to go ahead and choose yes. And it's going to come here to a screen. It says another user is currently logged into this computer. If I continue, this user will be disconnected from the computer. Are you sure you want to continue? I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. And it's going to currently log in. If you look over here on my client, this is what the client sees. It says it wants to connect to this machine. Are you sure you want to do this? And I've got a time limit here. It says 30 seconds. So if I don't hit anything, it will remotely log in. If I hit OK on the client, you will see that it's going to automatically force it. This client has now been booted out, and you're going to say, well, wait a minute, didn't we set simultaneous connections to these computers? Yes, we did. However, on the client computer, we only have a license for it to run one user logged in at a time. On a server, that can be different, but on the Windows clients, it will only still allow us to run one client at a time. And you can see now that it's preparing my desktop over here. And my desktop is now prepared. I am currently logged in. If you can see the IP address, currently logged into this computer right here under the administrator user. And so we use Remote Desktop to connect to it. If I want to leave, I can go ahead and choose either the log off or a disconnect option here. And I'll go ahead and hit disconnect, and I am now disconnected from that. And so this concludes the video on setting up Remote Desktop using the group policy.